Okay, so we are on our fifth meeting, Lab 5. We're going to work on JSON files today. So we're in our third week, our fifth lab. So I posted the third homework and the fifth lab. So they're due in a week. My deadlines are sort of loose, so these deadlines are to sort of keep you on pace. But if you have a question and it's the due date, but it's not working, and then it's probably better to hold on to it a day and get an answer to your question instead of just handing in whatever. When you hand in, only the first lab was screen captures. Everything else you should be handing me code, and you have to zip up Python code. So we're also getting to the part where we may be dealing with external files. So you'll have to zip them up so that they're all in one package, but also zip them up so then a code file will get through the email system. So there's two reasons. Don't send me a bunch of separate zips. That tells me you don't know what you're doing with zips. So if you're sending me more than one, you're sending me zipping up the text file and zipping up the Python file separately, then ask me privately. I'll show you how to zip a group of things. What else? So if you're having trouble, then you should be asking questions. There'll be time when I finally shut up today to ask me questions in class, ask me questions outside of class. We can email, we can Zoom. I want to answer your questions, but you have to ask them. Okay. Some people are good and they're all caught up, and there are people I don't think I have anything from yet. And that's bad. Okay, because it gets harder as we go. So if you're not keeping up, all of a sudden there's a lot to do. All right. Any questions before I start going over JSON examples? I don't see any questions. Okay. So here's my first JSON example. Okay, I'm going to open Studio. I remind you that Python, if you don't have Python on your machine, whatever machine you're using at home, then it's can be downloaded and installed. It's free. And Visual Studio Code, which is where I tend to work, is also free. And it's pretty lightweight. Visual Studio, what you use for, say, your C# class, your ASP class, your .NET class, I think we call it, that's like monstrously huge. This thing's pretty lightweight, and then you do the extensions. You just add what you want instead of having everything but the kitchen sink. All right, so I want to usually work with the folder. I'll work with the download folder. And that was just salad. Here's my Explorer. Here is my salad. I'm going to read, in the Python's going to read a file. Let's first look at the file. So the file is a JSON file. So we talked previously about dictionaries, and the JSON is very related to the notation that we use for dictionaries. Okay. So this the JSON, the JSON in JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. So it's a notation that comes from JavaScript, but it has been sort of adopted in many other languages. So it's a sort of a standard way to exchange information. Okay. It's like if you get there are two ways for you to get sort of to use a website and get information from some server. And it's either they're giving you access to their database if they really trust you, or they're giving you an API, and an API is probably going to deliver its data in a JSON format. Okay. So I may slip and use the JSON language of object and array, but we're in Python, so I should be saying dictionary and list. Okay. So this file starts with a curly bracket, so it is a dictionary. There is a property. Remember, dictionaries are key value pairs. So lettuce is a key. It's the name of a property. And then its value happens to be a list. And then it's a list of little dictionaries that are a single pair that says name must be the key, and then the value is iceberg. So I have a set of, I have a list, all this combined list of little dictionaries is the value of lettuce. That's one property. Then I'm moving down to the next property, fixings, and it proceeds similarly. That fixings is a property. It has a value. You separate the key from the value with a colon. This value happens to be a list. And then it's a list of smaller dictionaries. And this smaller dictionary has just one key value pair. The key is called name, and the value here is chicken, and then tuna, and so on. So that's what this file looks like. Okay. So now let's look at the Python that reads it. So there is a module. So last time we learned about modules. There is a module for JSON that will do all the hard work. So we have a module that understands JSON. So we import the JSON module, and then we'll use the JSON module, and it will do all the work to say, like, understand that that file is JSON. So we're importing the JSON. I have that file is a file that is next to my Python. And so, you know, this trick I like to do when I'm reading local files, I like to make sure that the terminal is in the same location as the file, so that when I say, here's where the text file is, the system knows what I mean. So that's my standard, and I use the OS module for that. So I imported OS, and I did my standard line of putting me in the location of this program. Oops, sorry. I am reading this file like we previously read a file. Again, last time we did modules and files. And so I'm reading this file. It's just a text file. It has the extension JSON, and it has the JSON notation inside. Basically, it's a text file. And so here's how we read a file. And I've read the file. And I did the read all at once approach. So JSON underscore data is just all the text of the file. It doesn't know it's JSON yet. It's just text. I know it's JSON, so I called it JSON underscore data, but it doesn't really know it's JSON yet. That happens in 17. So we use JSON loads. There's loads with an S and load without, and it depends whether you are working straight with the file or whether you read it in as a string and then you're sort of parsing the string. So I read it all in, and so I have a string, and so I use loads with an S when I have a string. And now Salad knows all about that structure of JSON. So it parsed that thing, and it knows what we just said before, that the overall thing is a dictionary. There's a property lettuce, which is a list. List is a list of dictionaries. That dictionary has a property of name, which has a value of iceberg. So that unwinding all of that structure and making sure the program understands it, that's all handled in line 17. Okay. And now the rest of me is just printing stuff out at different levels and looking at the type and then the thing. So here I'm printing out the whole thing salad. First, I'm printing out its type. So it should, I think, say dictionary, and then showing the salad. And then I do salad lettuce. So this is one of the ways to get the property. So I use square brackets. And so dictionaries are a bit like arrays, but instead of the, or I should say lists, but in lists, you usually usually have numbers to say one item from the other, whereas in a dictionary, you get your one property from the other by giving the name of the property, by giving the key. So this is my lettuce property. So it's not my whole salad, but the lettuce property of the salad. And I'm looking at what type of thing it is. And we thought that salad, or the lettuce property of salad, we thought was a list. So this should say it was a list, and then we should see it printing out the lettuce property. Now that we have a list, we can get an element of the list. And so we can give it, lists have numerical indices. And so I can just say, give me the first element of the list. And so I have another square bracket here of 0. And that's going to give me the first item, the first element of the list that is lettuce of the overall salad. And that's going to be another dictionary. And it's going to be that name value pair. And then finally, I can do salad, square bracket lettuce, square bracket 0, square bracket name. And then I am all the way down to the property value, and it was a string. It was iceberg, and iceberg is a string, and then it should tell me iceberg. So there is this printout. Where is my? I'm having trouble finding my scroll here. Oh, well. Let me just make it even higher here. Well, here is the salad lettuce, which was a list. And there's my list. Salad lettuce 0 was a dictionary. And there it is with the curly brackets. And then there is salad lettuce 0 name, and that's a string, which was just iceberg. So that doesn't do anything interesting, this program, but it's hopefully trying to make you aware of what is the structure within JSON. It understands dictionaries, it understands lists, it understands individual properties that can be strings, they could also be numbers. All right, so that is the first JSON program. And let me download the next one. There are two main ways that you can start a JSON file. We saw that there were curlies, which start off that tell you have a dictionary, and then there are square brackets, which tell you that you have a list. And the JSON can start either way. So I'm going to have two similar files where they have like the same basic content in them, but they're going to start differently, and we'll see how we interact with them differently. So I'm going to pull them both down so we sort of go back and forth and view them side by side. So this is the one that starts with curly. And then I want the one that starts with the square bracket. And this will be mostly the same, but the just the starting off point will be a little bit different. So there'll be some subtle differences that we want to point out. Okay, so let's look at the start curly. So there's the JSON. I'm telling you the movies, the top movies according to the Internet Movie Database at the time I took this data, whenever that was. I'm starting with a curly, which means I'm starting with a dictionary, and then I'm going to go into a property, and that property happens to be a list. Okay, so this is what we had before. Import JSON, import OS, get me in the right path, open the JSON file, read the JSON file, parse the JSON file. That's going to be all the same. It's when I get to the content after this that there are going to be some differences. But the reading the file is reading the file, and parsing this JSON is parsing this JSON. The JSON will kind of figure out how it started, but then now we want to start interacting with it, and we have to know its format. We can discover its format, but that's harder. So if you know the format, it's much easier. So here is, at this stage, we have read the JSON file, parsed the JSON file. Now I want to show the movies. I want to say, here are the top movies, and then, I don't know, that's probably it, but you might go on and say, have you seen any of them, or what have you. So movie info, I started with a curly. Movie info is a dictionary. But that dictionary has a property, IMDb top. IMDb top is a property of the dictionary, and that property is a list. So I'm starting off a for loop. I'm going to loop over a list, and so I have to have a list. Well, movie underscore info is not a list. Movie underscore info is a dictionary, but it has a property. The IMDb top property of the dictionary is a list, and that's what I can loop over. So you got to pay attention. That's going to be one of the differences. So what do you start with? Movie underscore info to start off with is a dictionary. It's not a list, so I can't loop over. There's a way to loop over, but never mind. A standard simple loop, you want a list, and this is the property that's a list. And then here I am in this style of for loop. You are looping over elements in a list. And so a movie is my element of the list. I called it a movie because I know it's in my lists. At this stage, it's a list of movies, so I called it a movie. If you wanted to be more generic, then call it element or item or something like that. But when I tell you to do something on dogs and you keep my thing that says movies, I don't know, I slap my head. But I've slapped my head so many times over the years, it doesn't have any effect anymore. All right, so I am looping over. So movie underscore info was not the array, was not the list, but movie underscore info, IMDb top, that was a list. So now I'm looping over the elements of the list. And I can either go back to movie info, I can say movie underscore info, square bracket, IMDb top, and then another square bracket and an I. And I can do that. I can work that way, but then I have to enumerate. So then I'd have to say, I want to enumerate this for them, which I can do. I've shown you in the past that you can enumerate when you're going over a list, but you don't have to. If I don't need the I, then I can just work with the element, a movie. And a movie has everything I want. it has the rank of the movie, it has the title of the movie, it has the year of the movie. So I could invent my own variable counter that would work. I could work with enumerating in the for loop, that would work. Or in this case, I don't really need numbers. I'm just working with the properties. So I didn't enumerate and I didn't introduce any kind of index variable. Okay, but the point here was we started with a curly, so I couldn't loop over movie info. I had to loop over movie info IMDb top. Why did I call it that? Okay, let's compare that to the square bracket. Start square bracket. So now this in the second file, the JSON, the start square, the JSON starts with a square, hence the name. So this JSON is a list from the start. So again, it has the same content, it's the same top movies in both files, but one started off with a curly and started off with a dictionary and had a property that was a list. This one is straight out of the block, a list. So what does the code for that one look like? Top is the same. JSON OS import, get the terminal in the right position, read the file, read it all, parse it as JSON. No changes there. I decided to call it movies. I didn't call it movie info, I called it movies with an S. In my mind, I don't know, that's implying that I understand that it is a list, which is multiple things, hence I called it movies, sorry. And then I can, but that's the thing that I read and parsed, and that this time is a list, and I can use it straight away in the for loop. So you've got to look at JSON data and figure out how it starts and what you want out of it. Sometimes you get what you want right away. In this one, I get movies is the list, and that's what I want right away. And the other time it started off with a dictionary and I had to dig down a little bit. I had to give it a property and then I could dig down there. Okay, any questions? When I'm showing you the two right next to each other, you say, yes, of course, that's easy. When I leave you on your own, you're going to copy the wrong kind of for loop and wonder why it doesn't work. Always look at the JSON, always understand. If you understand JSON, you'll understand how to write your code. If you don't understand your JSON and how it's starting, you'll just be fumbling in the dark. Okay. Anybody who's had me before in a programming course, some people had me for electronics, that doesn't count. But if you had me before in a programming course, you know that I love JSON. So you're going to see JSON, 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 get used to it. Ask lots of questions in the beginning, get used to it, and then it will become your friend. Okay. You can, in code, sort of discover the JSON. So this is us sort of assuming we don't know what the JSON looks like as much and just sort of discovering it. I'm using the square bracket. I'm using the easier JSON, but I'm saying, I don't know what the properties are. I don't know if there's a, I don't know the names of the property. I don't know if it's title, if it's movie title. What's the title of the movie? What's the name of that property? I don't know. I'm going to let the code discover it. That's what's going to happen in this one. So let's have a look. JSON from web, no. Loop through keys, that's the one I'm looking at. Okay, so it's the square bracket JSON. So I made it easy on myself that I start with the loop. Well, I start with the list, and here it is, loop through the keys. Okay, beginning is all the same. Import the JSON, import the OS, get my terminal in the right place, read the file, parse the file, all the same. I know this part I'm saying for 19, I say I know what's in there. I know it's a list, so I'm starting straight into the for loop. Here's the part where I'm saying, show me what's in there. So instead of me saying, I know there's a rank, I know there's a title, I know the names of those properties, I know there's movie title, I know there's IMDb rank, I know there's movie year. Instead of doing that, I'm saying a movie is a dictionary. So it's not a normal thing that you loop over. But if you say a dictionary dot items, that kind of turns it into something that you can loop over. And now, so I can loop over the properties. In a normal list, all the elements are sort of the same thing, playing the same role. And in a dictionary, the different properties have different roles. But when I say dot items, open close parenthesis, it's turning my dictionary more into a list that I can loop over, but I know it's a loop, I know it's a dictionary thing, so I know that my elements sort of have keys and values. So I'm going to have a key and a value, each of these dictionaries. I'm going to make it sort of list-like so I can loop over it, and I know each thing is a key and a value. So I'm going to show you the keys and the values. It's going to show them all to me. Okay. And so now I can see it. This time I can see it. And so it's giving me a list of all the key value pairs. So I said, give me curly, curly, dash, dash, curly, curly, and then put in there the key and the value. And I'm looping over each movie over its properties. So if I have a dictionary and I say dot items, that allows me to loop over the properties and see the properties. I could get fancier and I could say, let me loop over, let me read in the first thing and let me look at its type. And then I can say, oh, if the type is a dictionary, what are its properties? And if its type was a list, then let me loop over. So I can have code do all the discovery for me, but that gets harder and harder. So it's better if you know what the file looks like. It's easier coding if you know what the file that's coming looks like. Okay, questions. All right. That was looping through the keys. Looping through the keys. Going up, getting this thing, instead of making it a text file, getting it from the web. So there's only one file this time because I'm going to get the information off of the internet. So that is from web. Okay. Here is that program. All right. So I'm going to work with JSON. I don't have to do my OS stuff because my OS stuff was about my local data file and I'm not working with a local data file. So no, I didn't have to import OS. I didn't have to do that trick. Here's my URL. That's where the imdb.json file is. And I don't know if that's the one with the curly or without the curly. So let me copy this. So it's the one that starts with the curly. Okay. So there's the URL. So this comment here is my first approach, which actually works for this guy. You import something called URL library, and specifically the request. And then you can get the data. So you can do the URL library request, URL open, use the URL, read it and decode it. And that was all data. And then you can do the JSON formatting. So this URL was going to my site, and I don't put any restrictions on there. And so I don't have any security, I don't have any restrictions. But some APIs, again, I told you that if somebody wants to deliver some data to you, they're going to often put it in a JSON format, and that's an API. And in an API, sometimes to protect themselves from too many people hitting it all at once and using up their resources, they will limit the number of hits from a certain person, or they'll try to allow a person to come in, but not a program. So it depends on their security. Sometimes it's a limit in the number of hits. Sometimes it's a limit in the number or how you come in. Here's a variation. So that worked. Here's a variation where you're sort of Python is better at tricking the server into saying, like, I am a real, it's better at impersonating a person, so that you'll get less security issues here, and it's more likely to let you read the file. So it's the same, it's pretty much the same. It's just some variations that you throw in. You're pretending to be a particular browser and so on. So this helps trick the other site into letting you in and grabbing the data. Okay. So you might see me sometimes use this one. If you use this one and it doesn't work, switch over to that one and see if you can make that one work. But there's not much more there. It's not much harder than reading from the local JSON file. There's a different import, there's a different string of code. But for me, again, you never have to memorize code. You're always allowed to work from examples. So I tell you to read this JSON file, you find the example that reads from a JSON file, you copy it, and then you change the URL. Maybe you change it from movie info, especially if it's about dogs. We don't want to call our information about dogs movie info. That doesn't make sense. And then the rest is the same. I was using the part that started with a curly, so I had to say movie_info IMDb top, and then that is the list, and I could loop over the list. Okay, so not much harder to read from the web. In the real world, it's harder to read from the web, but these modules do all the hard work for you. And here's the trick. Of course, I got it, probably got it off of Stack Overflow. I think I probably lost I did lose my comment that said where I got this code. So this was the one that is better at bypassing some security. Not that you're going to break into Pentagon with it or anything like that, but at least I hope not. But it just gets past some of the simplest security that some servers offer up. Okay. Some APIs don't let you in unless you register and have like an ID. I don't use those because it's too much a pain in the ass. But I do use ones that tend to time out, and I don't know that they time out because I'm working at a time different from all of you, and then I'll have a test and you're all taking it at the same time. So we're all hitting it at the same time, and then it will stop us from working. Okay. Getting near the end, I think, I hope. So that was reading from the web. Read through the, okay. So what if you want to manipulate the JSON? So I'm going to do something to the JSON and write new JSON. So I'm going to read one file, make sure I understand it, change something, and then write a new JSON. All right, employees, that's what I'm looking for. Employee, there it is. Employee. So I have, it starts with a curly, so it starts with a dictionary. There's a property called employees, that is a list. It's a list of dictionaries, and those dictionaries have key value pairs of first name John, last name Doe, and so on. So pretty simple little file here. Okay, I'm going to read that file. Beginning is going to be the same. Import the JSON, import the OS. I'm back to a local file. Put myself in the right location, read, open up the file, read it all at once, parse it as JSON. And now I'm going to, so now I have all the information read in. Employee info is all the information. I'm prompting the user for another employee. Oh, give me a first name, give me a last name. I'm going to make a dictionary. Remember that our data is a dictionary that has a property that is a list of dictionaries. And those little inner dictionaries have a first name and a last name property. Okay, so I'm asking the user, tell me a first name, tell me a last name. I'm making an empty dictionary, the 24. I'm making a key value pair in this dictionary. I'm saying, let's have the key called first name and the value what the user entered. Have a key called last name, have the value what the user entered. So now I have a new little dictionary. I'm going to go to my big dictionary, which has a property employees, which is a list. And I'm going to append my new little dictionary to my list. And I'm going to print that out on the terminal to see it. And then I'm going to open a file, new underscore JSON.json with a W. That means I'm going to write to this file. And here I am. I'm F2 writing, and I'm using JSON dumps. So that's going to take all that file, put it in a nice JSON looking format, and it's going to do some indenting for me, and it's going to use like 2 spaces for my indent. Okay, so let me clear down here. I'm going to run this program. What's the first name? I'll say Toby. And what's the last name? McGuire. Okay. Then on the terminal here, I'm printing out my new overall dictionary. My dictionary has a property called employees, which is a list. It's a list of little dictionaries which have first and last names. There's John Doe, there's Anna Smith, there's Peter Jones, and now we have Toby McGuire. So I've added to my dictionary and printed, and it should be in a file. So let's find it in my file system here. I'm in downloads. I am employee add, and I just wrote the new file, new JSON. And here's my new JSON file, and there's John Doe and Anna Smith and Peter Jones and Toby Toby Maguire. I've written a new file with a new employee in it, and I've respected the JSON format. Did I write it? Did I write the JSON format myself? Did I say, okay, I need a curly bracket, I need a comma, and I need a square bracket? No, I read it in. It was JSON. I read it in. I said, understand it as JSON. I added some information to it, and then I said, spit it out as JSON. It gave me some nice indenting. This is not what JSON looks like when you get it from an API. They won't give you nice indents because that is those things take up space. And so when it's sending you information over the internet, it wants to do it efficiently. So usually when you get data from an API, it's a big jumble. What you do with your big jumble is it's probably, you looked at it, it's a big jumble, you copy it, you paste it into a text file, you'll come over here in like Visual Studio Code, you'll open it up, you'll use a JSON, when you save the file, you'll give it a JSON extension. And then you'll right click and you'll say format, and it will make it nice looking. There are also there are things on the internet, so you don't have to do it yourself. You can just use an internet that will help you sort of, make format JSON. So if you said if you just pull up Google and you say, I have some JSON, but I want it formatted nicely. If you just Google like format JSON, it'll give you a site where you can sort of paste it in, and it will sort of do indenting and line up curly brackets and square brackets and make it a lot easier to read. No questions. All right. So that was me. I added something, and I had a list, and I added an element to the list. Now I'm going to add a key value pair. So I'm going to make a new key value and add that for all the items in my list. All right, extract. It's employee make username. Employee make username now. It's the same JSON file without Toby Maguire. And okay, same beginning. Import JSON, import OS, position myself in the right place, read the file, open the file, read the file, parse it as JSON. That's all the same. When I give a test and I have that stuff, those are going to be free points. One part of the test will be, oh, here's a JSON file, and you'll go, okay, set up all those steps. And you don't even have to think about it much other than changing the name of the file. And it's sort of like free points. So people will get that part wrong. Okay, here is me. Remember that employees is the property that is a list. So I'm looping over a property that is a list. I'm calling the dictionary EMP, so that the element of the list is I'm calling it EMP, and if you recall, that is itself a dictionary. And I have access to the last name, which I put into lowercase. I have access to the first name, which I put in lowercase, and then I went from the made a substring that went from the first index up to the next index, not including. And so that is the first initial. So I'm making like a LaSalle-esque sort of username. And then I'm printing it out just to see in the terminal that I have it. And then I'm making a new key value pair. Amp username is equal to that username. So that is editing that all out. I'm not writing it to a file, but I am writing it out to the terminal. So now I should have a new dictionary, with a property employees, which is a list of dictionaries. But all those little dictionaries should have now an extra property, the username property. Let me clear this down here. Okay, run it. And at the end, I put out the list, and here is curly bracket employees. It's a list. My first object, my first dictionary in the list is first name John, last name Doe, username Doe J. So I've added a new property to the list. Okay, so I've added an element to a list. I've added a property to a dictionary. And just the kind of contrary kind of person I am, I have you instead deleting. So I have to show you not exactly what I want you to do, but something similar. I don't want that. Okay. Deleting. I'm going to pop something. Push is to add something to a list, append or push, and pop is taking it off. So there it is, list popping. And there's just some logic to getting rid of something. And so I just want to show you that logic so you get it right. Okay. So where am I? What was this called? List popping. There it is. List popping. List popping. I just made two copies, list and list two. And I just, it's a list. It is a list of dictionaries. And there's A1, B1, A1, B2, A2, B3, just some values. They're the same. I think they're the same. They're the same. Okay. And now I'm going to get rid of some stuff, and I'm going to do it wrong, and then I'm going to do it right. And so what seems the simpler thing is wrong, and then I'm going to do it right. So I just want you to sort of, when it comes your turn, to pay attention and do it the right way. So I'm looping over my list. This is the bad way. I'm looping over my list. I'm enumerating, so I have access to I, to the element, and to the counter, to the index. And I'm saying that if the property A is a 2, I want to get rid of that item in my list. So I'm popping it. I'm popping the item out of my list. And that's not going to work. Because when I take an item out of my list, that throws off my count. So everything shifts down. So I'm going 0, 1, 2, 3, and then I got rid of 3. Everything shifted down, but I'm moving on to 4, but there was a new 3 that I haven't accounted for. So this is the bad way. And then what I'm going to do instead is, in the second version, I'm going to set up a loop that counts down. So range is a way to set up a range. I want to count down. So I want to know the length of my list. But my list, say I have 5 things. The indices are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want to start at 1 less than my length. Standard array stuff. So the beginning of my range is the length of my list minus 4. In a range, the second thing in a range is where you're going, but you go one more. So if I wanted you to go up to, if I wanted you to go to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I would say start at 0 and go to 5. And it wouldn't do 5, it would go up to 4. So you, in a range, you always go sort of one past. So the second argument in a range is exclusive. So the first one is inclusive. Where do I start? The second one is exclusive. I never see the second number. So I don't get to -1. But if I want to get to 0, if I'm counting down and I want to get to 0, I go to -1. Because I want to go beyond where I want to go one beyond where I really want to go, and I really want to go to 0. Okay. And then the third argument there is that I'm going down by -1s. So this is for me to count down from the length of the list -1. So from the highest item to go down, I go to -1. I sort of have to go past 0 so I can get to 0. And I'm going down by -1s. And then if the ith item has an A property that it's 2, then I want to pop it. If I'm counting down and I get rid of something and things shift, well, the stuff that shifts, I'm already done with, so who cares? When you're counting up, the first loop counted up, stuff shifts when you pop it out, and that throws off your analysis. But if you're counting down and stuff shifts, it's the stuff you've already dealt with, so who cares? There are other ways to do this. If you want to do it another way, that's fine. I'm just giving you a way to do it. Okay. So my goal here was to get rid of things whose A's property is 2. And oops, I have too much stuff in here. I have too much stuff in here to scroll. I'm gonna kill the terminal, run it. It still has too much stuff. Okay, so here's the first one. It's A1, A1. Here's an A2. That's what I'm trying to get rid of, and there's a bad one, A2. So that's the bad one that didn't work. But the last one, there's A1, A1, A3. That one worked. So, all right. What do you have to do? I killed my browser. I was an idiot. Sound. Sorry. Canvas. Three, 4, 1. Lab 5. And what do you have to do? Just putting lots of little pieces together. I've shown you the pieces. That's typical of me. Show you a lot of pieces, then try to get you to put them together. So there's this website, this sort of fake API website that gives you JSON of people who are making posts. And I want you to, so you're doing a web JSON read. So find the web JSON read and read the post from that. Parse it as JSON, the whole 9 yards. Okay, then what? I want you to loop through it, probably in this popping version, looping down. And we don't like user ID number 5. This is somebody who is in social media jail, and we want to eliminate their posts. And so we are going to loop through the file and delete everything that the user with user ID 5 posted. And then we're going to, when we have all that JSON, we're going to write it to a new file. So you have all the pieces, put them together. Questions, any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to go get my attendance sheet, so don't run out on me till I have my attendance.